Have you ever wondered how God looks at a world that has turned away from the fundamentals of truth expressed in His Bible? Or how He looks at people who know what He has said to do, but have determined in their hearts to do just what they want to do? Or what He has to say to those who write laws that make it legal to do what He clearly has stated is wrong? Well, God has a word for that. I'm Bishop Jim Lowe, and let's come together and learn God's answers for today's situations as we read from the Word of Truth. In Psalms 14, we're going to find out what God has to say to the fools of this world. Verse 1, we start off with, "The fool has said in his heart, there is no God." Well, when we look in the original, we recognize that the word "there is not there. So what we can read this, and we can see two meanings here. That the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. Or the fool can also say, no God. And what we have is both meanings that apply. People who say no to God, He calls a fool. And people who also say there is no God, He calls a fool. And as a result that they do not believe in God, or because they say no God, the Bible says they are corrupt. They have done abominable works, and there is none who does good. The fool says no God because Proverbs 9 and 10 says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And the fool is a fool because he has no wisdom, because he denies God. Fools are not wise, and they can never be wise. And because they are fools, they wind up doing foolish things. They violate God's law and encourage others to do the same. There are many fools in our society today. This is the reason we have so many wicked laws that are being passed by our government. The children of the light are not allowing their light to be seen. Even though they think there is no God, verse 2 tells us otherwise. The Lord looks down from heaven upon the children of men to see if there are any who understand, who seeks God. See, there is a God in heaven, and He is concerned about the things that go on here in the earth. After all, it is His earth. God also looks upon the earth and was concerned in Genesis 6:12 when we see, "So God looked upon the earth, and indeed it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth." You see, these godless people that have become godless because they say no to God will one day find out that there is a God and prove themselves to have been fools. They are godless because they are fools. They have rejected God. But God is a fair God and a just God. He does not just rely upon what the angels tell Him or what others say to Him. He finds out what He needs to know for Himself. That would be a good thing for us, because in this day of fake news and people lying so much, we need to know the real truth. Oh, how I wish man would honor God and be righteous in their judgments. And then when God looked at it, as we go back to Psalms 14, it was sad, but He had to say this in verse 3. They have all turned aside. They have together become corrupt. There is none who does good. No, not one. So let's make a comparison with that with Psalms 53. And look at the first 3 verses of Psalms 53, where God repeats the same thing. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt and have done abominable iniquity. There is none who does good. God looks down from heaven upon the children of men to see if there are any who understand, who seek God. Every one of them has turned aside. They have together become corrupt. There is none who does good, no, not one. Again, God is emphasizing the point that if a person does not believe in Him, he is a fool. He is not a fool because I say so, but he's a fool because God says so. And his actions are ungodly because he is a fool for rejecting God. And because he has violated God, perhaps we could say he is a damned fool. Then God goes on, as we go back to Psalms 14, He challenges the people in a sense. Have all the workers of iniquity no knowledge, who eat up my people as they eat bread, and do not call on the Lord? See, the workers of iniquity, He said, do they have no knowledge of who I am? And you're eating up my people. Children of God, we have to recognize that much of the suffering we go through is because the workers of iniquity have no knowledge of God. They care not to hear about him. And they don't call on him. They don't have any sense. That's what God says. Do they really know who I am? And then they have the audacity to mistreat my people. And they're not calling on me. You know, because of these fools, because they don't believe in God, they mistreat the ones that do. Oh boy, are they in big trouble. And that's what he says in the next verse. There they are in great fear, for God is with the generation of the righteous. See, this is something that we can be hopeful about. Even though the world may turn against us and may gripe and complain about us, the Bible says God is with the righteous. He is with us and he cares for us. Even though they don't want to admit there is a God, they can notice that there's something special about the righteous. They can see something different about us. And then it is said in Psalms 34:17, the righteous cry out, and the Lord hears, and delivers them out of all their troubles. And then in Proverbs 11:8, it says the righteous is delivered from trouble, and it comes to the wicked instead. Yes, my friends, the fools are in big trouble. Big trouble, because they say no God. They take the things that God says that are wrong and evil, and they say that it is okay. And they think that just because they can get a government to say that it's okay, it's legal, it changes God. Well, I tell you what, we've got a lot of voting to do to change what God has written in the Bible. So let's go back to Psalms 14 and look at the 6th verse. Talking about the workers of iniquity, you shame the counsel of the poor, but the Lord is his refuge. This is, these wicked people, these fools, shame the counsel. That is the words that the righteous people speak of. But God is our refuge. Now we see they mess with God's people, and they ignore the wisdom of God's people. Even though they mistreat and put down God's people, God is our refuge. In Psalms 14:7, oh, that the salvation of Israel would come out of Zion. When the Lord brings back the captivity of his people, let Jacob rejoice and Israel be glad. There is a day that is coming. There is a day that we can see that God will be seated on the throne, and nothing that the fools say can change that. Because we as Christians have Jesus, no matter how screwed up this world is, or no matter how much people say there is no God, or say no to the wisdom of the Word of God, we can rejoice and be glad, because our God still reigns on the throne. Until we meet next time, I'm Bishop Jim Lowe. God bless.